there's a lot of waste, a lot of pollution, a lot of damage being done in New Zealand. And that goes completely against this image of New Zealand being 100% pure and clean and green. The only reason that we have that reputation is because there isn't so many people, so there's still some untouched areas.
The future of humanity is at risk.
Humans are the things that are going to die if we carry on warming the planet.
We've really lost that connection to nature, you know. It's the biggest problem in the world today.
There is hope. I would like it to be bigger, but we're stuck with what we've got.
Solutions never come in one shape or form.
Everyone has to do something to help.
Producing so much waste that there's no way to put it in.
Climate
People
change.
will do different
We have to
things.
We have to think.
It's very important to shop locally, to eat seasonally.
Humans don't realise all the amazing, wonderful, positive things that they're capable of.
Aux antipodes de la France, la Nouvelle-Zélande n'est pas tout à fait comme nous l'imaginons. Ces grands espaces naturels sont menacés par les modes de vie locaux, peu respectueux de l'environnement. À l'échelle mondiale, la Nouvelle-Zélande est le 6e plus gros émetteur de gaz à effet de serre par habitant. Et le pays est le 4e plus grand producteur de déchets ménagers. En sillonnant le pays, Brewen et moi allons à la rencontre de ceux qui ont décidé de vivre autrement. Ceux qui ont décidé d'agir pour un monde durable.
We left Auckland in the 1970s because I didn't want to participate in that industrial modern complex, and we decided to go back, live on the land, and I taught myself to work wood, build houses, do different things in life, and grow food and trees. Like this, it's a bit like a butternut or a pumpkin type thing, and you can cook it the same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have planted more native trees, fruit trees, developed vegetable gardens, olive trees. We've got a small olive grove. We make our own olive oil, and some flowers. So no sprays and no artificial fertilisers because of the health of the planet, for the health of our family. New Zealand has made most of its income from farming, and because we have always prided ourselves in being a country that is ahead of things, a lot of ideas about how you farm were developed here. That included artificial fertiliser and using sprays. So the majority of farmers and gardeners will still be in that model, right? So actually what we are doing is certainly part of a movement, but it is still quite a small movement. It's still not more than maybe 10% at the most. Not even that, perhaps. A movement to create a better future, to go back to, well, to go forward actually, go forward to better ways of producing food.
It's funny because permaculture is like what ancient tribes used to do for centuries, so we're not doing it more than they used to do it, but I mean, yeah, maybe in the last 20 years since, I don't know, since agriculture took over. It's, yeah, maybe permaculture is starting to come back a little bit more strongly now. Yeah. Te Paranui is basically a permaculture farm and homestead. We have an animal sanctuary, we grow vegetables, we have volunteers coming and helping us and learning, and we have a few residents living on the property. Permaculture is kind of holistic, so it's trying to cater to human needs on every level, from energy and water kind of resources to whatever other kind of resources you need, up until food, obviously, beyond that to community and to even your economic systems and just how everything works and how everything interacts together. It's trying to be as close to nature, mimic nature and all its complexities, with regards to growing and with regards to just human settlements. Where did I learn about permaculture? I'm just wherever I could find a house and a person and a piece of land that were like available and willing to let me try things, I would just go there and go all out and experiment and learn.
I became a gardener because I like good food and feeding people good food. Being here and producing food, you get a better idea of what sustainable food costs in time, in money, in effort, and you get a new level of respect for food. People who do this kind of farming would be much less likely to waste food or land or water. I do believe that solutions never come in one shape or form. Many people will do different things, and these different things and solutions will contribute towards dealing with this change. Knowledge changes behavior. I think it's the most amazing thing about human beings, that knowledge changes our behavior so quickly. It's why we adapt so fast. And I enjoy an almost instant change in people with not necessarily the information I pass, but the knowledge they turn the information into.
On Tuesday we had a group of school kids come and visit the farm. They attended a little workshop. I showed them around the garden, told them a bit about composting and growing food. Every time we put a bucket of manure from the toilet, we put a bunch of leaves on top and a little bit of soil, and there's some worms living inside there, and they are doing their work, eating it up.
It's like a cycle.
It's like a cycle, yeah, exactly. Nice. I guess the idea is to just show them something a little bit different to the mainstream, get them to just learn that there are alternative ways of living and alternative ways of eating. Okay, so do you guys know what you're looking for?
Green, silver beet, pumpkin seeds, onions.
If you haven't grown up with your parents growing vegetables, they just come from the supermarket, you know?
I had been building conventional housing for a long time. I was very sick of using a lot of chemically preserved timber, and I actually ended up with a lot of toxins in my body from it. So I decided that there must be a way of building without all the toxins. So we opted to build an earth house. We had the clay here, so it was very simple to get the clay, use the clay from here. We had a lot of trees. I thought, well, it would be nice to utilise a lot of the wood that's here. We have been on solar power for 16 years or so, and we haven't had too many problems. And during that time, we've never had a power bill, so that's the other bonus. Because we don't have power, we therefore use a wood stove to heat our water, our hot water, so we can, so we always have hot water, but that also means that we have to light the wood stove in the summertime in order to get hot water. It's not for everybody, but it is an enjoyable process. Can be stressful, but so can any house building. In the long run, it's far outweighed the cost of actually bringing everything in. And, you know, there's a satisfaction about doing everything yourself, so. It's a lifestyle way of living, and you adapt your lifestyle to suit. And it's enjoyable.
Growing the food instead of earning the money to buy the food that someone else has grown. So for us, that's kind of the target of being semi-self-sufficient. I don't know how self-sufficient, but more than the majority of people these days.
So that started from the moment we put the foundations in the ground, and that was just a matter of researching and sourcing every single product that we used to make sure that it was non-toxic. Actually, another component of being self-sufficient is that we do collect all of our water here. It's from the roof, rainwater.
The cycle is that it comes from the rain onto the roof, into a tank, into us. The food comes into us. It then goes into the toilet to our worm farm, and the worms, the liquid passes through, and the solids are broken down by the worms. The worms convert it all into a liquid, and that liquid then gets pumped through our garden. As the liquid waters our vegetable garden, it begins the cycle again, that it fertilizes and feeds our vegetables, and it in turn feeds us and goes through the circuit. So.
It's another reason we have to be very careful about the products that we use as well. But everybody should be, really, because it all ends up somewhere. But we know that, you know, we could kill our worms.
The detergent.
If we put something down there like bleach or all of these, some of these products that have really nasty chemicals in them, if we kept flushing that through, then A, it would be damaging to the worms and to the whole system, and B, we water our vegetables with it. So yeah, we're really careful about everything that comes in, everything that goes out, and
it's a life cycle. It's a life cycle.
You can make a choice, you know, you can choose to support people who are using sustainable growing methods and using organic principles and doing things that actually maintain and increase the health and fertility of our soil. You can make consumer choices. You can decide whether you holiday in another part of the world using an aeroplane or, holiday here in your own country. You can make decisions about how much water you use. There's lots of things small choices that we have control over. And I guess the important thing I see in this day and age is for people not to kind of enter into a place of despair and feel that there aren't things that they can do, because there's always something you can do. Yeah.
We consume so much in New Zealand relative to other parts of the world. Reducing waste is an important part of reducing your carbon footprint. Partly because when you reduce your waste, one of the most effective ways to do that is to consume less. And the less that we consume, the less of a carbon impact we have. The production and manufacture of things, and the transportation of things. So lots of people who may not be interested in reducing their carbon footprint or whatever are actually still quite interested in reducing waste. I think waste is something that people connect to because it's very tangible. You can feel it, you can touch it. When you start to reduce your waste, you can see straight away because you throw less stuff out. Whereas when you reduce your carbon emissions, you have nothing to show for it. But when people start to reduce their waste, they start to become much more intimately aware of their own impact on the surrounding environment, their own consumption.
Most of the world has a linear economy, which is basically take resources from the earth, make them into products, and then when they're no longer any good, dispose of them into a landfill or something. Straight line from beginning to end, resources to waste. So circular economy is about joining the ends up so that things are designed not to be thrown out and no longer of any use, but actually stay in the system, go round and round. So they're designed to be repaired, they're designed to be reused, to be recycled properly.
Tetra Pak, we save these. And then pretty much all the plastic that comes from the kitchen, all the soft plastics. Here in Marlborough they don't recycle the soft plastics. They don't recycle Tetra Pak either, so rather than putting them in the landfill, we make use of them. And we just fill these up with all the scraps of things that can't be recycled. Make sure they're nice and clean and dry before we do it so they don't break down inside there. And you push it really tight. So they're good insulation. Stayed with a family living in Patagonia in the south of Chile, where it snows all winter long. They've built their whole house and insulated it all with these eco bricks. Works pretty well. You would have your inside, which is wood or whatever you want on the inside, and your eco bricks stacked inside there, either 1 or 2 layers thick, depending on how cold or how hot the place is that you live, and then corrugated roofing or whatever else you wanted to use as your waterproofing on the outside. We recycle whatever can be recycled, eco bricks to whatever can go to eco bricks. Just reuse, recycle whatever we can. We've kind of reached that point where it'll take us probably 6 months to fill a bag, and we have about 4 people permanently living here and 5 volunteers at a time, all the time, so yeah.
But you are going to want to know what is your rubbish, what are you throwing away, what's going into your bins at home and at work. And once you've identified a few things that you think you can improve on. So we're travelling the whole of New Zealand, giving talks and presentations about how people can reduce their household rubbish, which is based on our experience of living without a rubbish bin since the beginning of 2015.
We want to emphasise that zero waste is a pragmatic philosophy. No matter what you do, you are always going to produce some waste.
New Zealand, according to World Bank data, New Zealanders are the most wasteful people per capita in the OECD. Not only do we have services that are of lower quality than the rest of the world, we consume way more and throw more out. So like we need to rebalance with what we've got. So we decided to start living without a rubbish bin because we'd always been really conscious about trying to reduce our waste. So we did little things like we would go, when we went to get a coffee, we'd have our own reusable cup. When we went to the supermarket, we'd bring our own bags. And we did really care, but we noticed that we were still producing heaps of rubbish. And we started to think a little bit more about where our rubbish was coming from and realising that we were buying so much stuff from the supermarket packaged in bits of plastic and just not being completely conscious and open to seeing where all this rubbish was coming from. And we were really wanted to cut down on our rubbish because we were very concerned about the impacts that we knew waste was having on the environment. But of course it's like, how do you even do that? So
that was the next thing.
That was the next thing, was working out how to do that.
So we just have a few little tips to actually help people remember. So
this
here
is
we have
all the stuff.
our day bag with our water bottle, with our reusable coffee cups, although a mug is fine too. And extra bags if we need. Our takeaway container.
You can just use an ice cream box, that's fine as well.
This is our little cutlery holder, so we've got our knives and forks in there.
And chopsticks.
And then a whole bunch of bags in here, little produce bags if we're going to the supermarket, or even if we're just foraging, some leaves on, the side of the road, we can put them in there.
And so it seems like a lot of things to remember, but it's all in one bag. So all you have to remember is the one bag. So yeah, these are little things that anybody can do. It's not hard. It's just getting into the new habits. Yeah. Yeah.
When we talk about reducing our waste, we're obviously an extreme example of what you can do, but we like to offer everything we've learned. Tie them around like that a couple of times.
You'll see, you need to have an email to someone.
For example, if people were just to never use a disposable takeaway coffee cup again, it would make such a huge difference. And that's not about being zero waste, it's about just removing one problem item from our waste stream. In most parts of the world, people say the best way to reduce our waste is to recycle more. Well, we already question that. So recycling for us is like a last resort. It's what we do when we've failed to minimise. However, recycling is an important part of the waste minimisation philosophy. Heaps of our recycling gets sent overseas, to Asia mostly, to be processed. So there's a big carbon footprint for sending it there. We have one glass recycling plant in New Zealand. It's in Auckland. It's too expensive to get glass from the South Island to Auckland. So it gets crushed, the glass, and turned into roads, which is crazy. Because then you turn glass into a single-use item. Glass takes huge amounts of energy to produce. So when you crush it and turn it into a road, you've created a packaging item that has more global warming potential than a plastic bottle. So we like glass, but we think that the best part of glass is it's infinitely recyclable and infinitely reusable. When you reduce your environmental footprint, often what you have to do is become more resourceful, make use of what's around you already, which means you unlock all this creativity and you learn how to do new things, and that is really exciting and fun and joyful. We've realised through living this lifestyle how much abundance there is in the world. And that's pretty exciting. Yeah. it's just really important that people realise that we need to take responsibility for our own footprint on the world. And I think there's a tendency to say, oh, businesses, they produce more pollution than us, so they should sort it out. Or what's often common in New Zealand, oh, New Zealand only makes up point something of the world's carbon, so it's for other countries to do.
And in fact, you know, sometimes politicians, government politicians have said that, like, oh, New Zealand, it's only, it's a very small amount, so we don't really, if we do anything, it's not going to make a difference at all, you know. And
also, you know, letting people know it does make a difference. It really does make a difference. And that if we all start to do something, it's going to snowball.
Yeah, right. So this is why...
We just encourage people to think about what's one little thing they can start doing from tomorrow and just go from there. And you'll start to see you'll influence other people around you as well. And big things can come from small changes.
Yeah.
Since 1976 I have recorded rainfall and temperature, but I do believe from 40 years of observation that the weather is changing, it is less predictable. I think people have to learn to be very adaptable, to expect the unexpected, to not imagine that what they experience this year will be the same next year. High is fine weather and low is bad weather. At the moment it's quite high, but it will be going, it's just climbed up, but we've got a storm coming, so with the storm... We have to learn that there's going to be more extremes of hot and cold, more violent storms or extreme weather. In 1988, we experienced our first cyclone. So of living there for 15 years, suddenly one really bad cyclone. Up into the early 1990s, we had a few more, you know, like they seem to happen more often. So we need to design our houses and our lifestyles, even our gardens, to be more robust against severe weather.
I thought it was a good idea to respond to sea level rise, and the local council didn't agree with me and want me to be stopped because they're frightened about the message that I have. So they want the boat destroyed, and I asked the government to help. The government got a nautical architect to come down and do an inspection and provide a report, and he said yes, it's a boat, and the local council said no, it's not, we know better, and now the government has said it's not a boat unless I take certain things out or change things. $40,000 so far on opposing this being a boat. I pay for that. I'm a taxpayer and a ratepayer. People are going to be slightly upset about the fact that our money's been spent on something stupid like this instead of dealing with global warming in a proactive and positive way. The sea rise is slow, unable to be stopped, inexorable but slow. But big storms, unusual weather events, long droughts or huge floods, these things will become more apparent much sooner.
Did you already notice it here?
Yeah. Last year we had 2 1-in-50-year floods here. 2 in 1 year. So, yeah.
Which is not usual.
Well, the whole point of that, me saying that, is that calling it a 1 in 50-year flood assumes that it's going to happen once every 50 years. We had 2 of them in 1 year, and the previous one was maybe 2 years before that. So, yeah, do the maths. They're not 1 in 50-year floods anymore. They're happening every year. Humans are quite resilient when disasters happen, not so good at planning beforehand. My beliefs about it is just to encourage plenty of people to come through here. And this container home here, 1 metre off the ground as well, so that it'll be, even if this was flooded, it will still work. It's also relocatable, meaning you can pick it up and take it away, which is something that's quite important if you're dealing with flooding in the future. If it gets so bad that people can't live here, it's quite handy that you can just take your house away. This one you can take for a walk to the beach. Because, you know, gardens are just like a pet or a family friend. You have to look after them, give them some entertainment. This is a tumbling composter. Turns around to mix everything. Oh, nice. Live simpler, you know? But that's not popular because the corporations want to make money and they need you to consume. Because things are going to have to get simpler, either by being forced to or by choice. So I say make the choice first before you're forced to. So I think it's a huge challenge for humans to take on a new way of looking at the earth. That's the only way we will survive. I don't recommend everyone builds a boat. As part of my response to that issue is the groundwater level coming up. One or two interesting features like that double glazing system. Cheap and crude but very effective. Stays incredibly warm. Plastic on the outside, plastic insert. Probably cost $5 and 20 minutes to build. My invention of extracting heat from the flue. These are all copper and they provide a huge amount of hot metal surface to the air ratio. I like to think like a mountain and breathe like a tree. You know, mountains think really slow, long thoughts, long period of time. Trees breathe twice a day. And okay, I'm working on the breathing one. But it's an attitude about trying to see ourselves in a place where we have an effect for generations and trying to leave a place and treat the earth in a way that will allow my grandchildren's grandchildren to live happy and healthy lives.
Quel monde voulons-nous laisser à nos enfants, nos petits-enfants? L'enjeu n'est pas de sauver la planète. Elle n'a pas besoin de nous pour survivre. Il s'agit plutôt de protéger les êtres vivants, et parmi eux l'espèce humaine. Agir pour un monde durable, ça commence par une prise de conscience de l'impact de chacun de nos choix sur l'environnement.
I remember growing up as a child, we used to have these little blue and silver butterflies. They're gone because they loved living in the grasses and they've all been mown and they're not there anymore. By having an area where insects and other animals can thrive, we're bringing nature back. It's not that we're introducing new, we don't necessarily want the new, we just want to put it back a bit the way it is supposed to be. we've made everything too sterile. Everything's been cut down or burnt or lawn mown or put concrete down, and that's creating an imbalance. And I think the environment can't cope with that. It's nice to have a little area which looks a bit crazy
Wild.
and a bit wild.
Yeah, a lot of that is probably what other people would consider looks untidy.
But that's what wild looks like, you know. That's nature. Leave it alone.
Yeah, so working with
and working
nature, yeah, rather than fighting against it.
Yeah.
So I've just turned over, there's a whole new area in the garden there I've just turned over to plant these, so I'll have to... Eco-villages were a model of intentional community. They differ from other intentional communities because of their philosophy around the caretaking of land and equally the relationship between the people who live on that land. So the way that our community works is that it's set up like a company. It uses a company structure. And the company owns the land, which is about 420 acres. And then everyone who lives on the land is a shareholder. So effectively we have 15 shares to our company and they constitute 15 families. Yeah? You know, part of the philosophy of living here is about making space for life other than human life. Yeah? So we could technically have a whole lot more humans here, but that may compromise the well-being of other life forms. So when you've got frogs around, you know that your ecosystem is in good health because they're one of the things that disappear early on. This is a solar dehydrator. So when you've got fruit and herbs that you want to dry, it hasn't had its winter clean because obviously nothing's been dehydrated in this over winter. You can dry apples and peaches and pears and tomatoes. There's some people who grow a huge amount of food and they're really good at growing food, and that's often traded within the village for other food or skills or, you know, whatever. Money, you know, we do use money as well. We've been having conversations about, you know, what our future might look like here and, you know, how we could possibly be growing more food here and how that could be done. You know, whether as, you know, different shares grow, you know, somebody might grow a whole lot of potatoes and someone else might grow a whole lot of kumbara and somebody else might grow a whole lot of onions and then you would share them. But we're still having those conversations. I actually eat here in my immediate environment, and if you can eat things in your immediate environment, well, you're instantly lowering your footprint, your carbon footprint in terms of, you know, processing and transporting food. Yeah. Sure, we're here, we're growing food, we're living by organic principles, we're building our own dwellings, we're trying to, you know, live lightly, we're working on conservation and restoration of land. But I don't think eco-villages like this one, a rural-based, a land-based eco-village, is the answer to everybody's idea of sustainability moving forward. Because actually most of our populations live in cities. There are lots of choices that people can make who live in urban environments to live more lightly. Yeah, it doesn't mean that everybody has to move back to a land-based lifestyle. There you go. That's one for you too. Thank you. I like this lifestyle. I came to live here because for me, I love growing things. I love living close to the land, in relationship with the land. You know, I like having non-human company. I like the bees, I like the birds. I like the quietness of it. And it does show to people that it is possible to live a simpler life. I guess generally speaking, you would say that most people here have chosen a life of what we would call voluntary simplicity.
It's a good feeling to live simply, I think. And there's more time for doing things you enjoy. Arts, crafts, music, making things, thinking of new ideas for your simple life. I preferred to wake up in the morning, light my little fire, cook some porridge, make enough hot water for a bath, bake some bread, go and work in the garden, grow some food. Being closer to nature's a big part of it, I think. Well, first of all, I live in a shed. It's pretty simple. There's a workshop, there's a little kitchen and a garden. So I like to help out in the local community. I've been teaching at the school, and yeah, it's just good to be a part of the community, you know. NZ. They have about 3 or 4 groups all doing different projects. The ones that I am helping are doing a garden to pizza oven program. So they're going to grow enough food and make pizza for the school and the community. So this is pretty cool. I'm going now. I'll get the blame. Living within a community of people, I find quite comforting, just to know there's other people around that I can, if I have too much of one thing, I can trade with someone else. To say I have too many eggs, I can swap it for some garlic with the neighbour, you know. Just that simple thing's pretty cool. Travelling changed me. Started to understand things, see things a bit different. So I came back and yeah, decided I didn't want to be a part of the big game of getting a job and working your way up, or working many hours a week to own a house and a flash car. Was not so interesting to me, really. So now that I have a son and a family, yeah, this was a change to suddenly be responsible for a child. I think it's good for him too, to grow up in this kind of space. It's not an unhealthy environment. I think it's more healthy than a house because it breathes, and you're often outside more, you know. This kind of space pushes you outside more, so you spend more of your time sitting outside or in the garden. we are part of the earth. I think we've really lost that connection to nature, you know. It's the biggest problem in the world today. This is what's causing many illnesses and problems in the world, because we've forgotten really who we are and where we came from. We're all a small piece of nature, so let's go back to it.